Okay, so we will, if people, everyone's got a spot to settle into more or less. I have to say it's more so, it feels more cozy, right? Cozy friendly. Okay, so we're on page 8 of the prayer book. We'll recite together the Heart Sutra. I prostrate to the Arya triple gem. Thus did I hear at one time the Bhagavan was dwelling on massive Vulture's mountain in Rashagriha, together with a great community of monks and a great community of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Bhagavan was absorbed in the concentration on the categories of phenomena called profound perception. Also, at that time, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara looked upon the very practice of the profound perfection of wisdom and beheld those 5 aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Then, through the power of the Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra said this, Sattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara. How should any son of the lineage train who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom? He said that, and the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara said this to the Venerable Shariputra. Shariputra, any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom should look upon it like this, correctly, repeatedly beholding those 5 aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form. Form is also not other than emptiness. The same way, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, likewise, all phenomena are emptiness without characteristic, unproduced, unceased, stainless, not without stain, not deficient, not fulfilled. Shariputra, therefore, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factors, no conscious eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no form, no sound, no odor, no taste, no object of touch, and no phenomenon. There is no I element and so on, up to and including no mind element and no mental consciousness element. There is no ignorance, no extinction of ignorance and so on, up to and including no aging and death, or no extinction of aging and death. Similarly, there is no suffering, origination, cessation, and path. There is no exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also no non-attainment. Shariputra, therefore, because there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and dwell in the perfection of wisdom, the mind without obscuration and without fear. Having completely passed beyond error, they reach the endpoint of nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in the 3 times, so manifestly, completely awakened to unsurpassable, perfect, complete enlightenment, relies on the perfection of wisdom. Therefore, the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the mantra equal to the unequaled, mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering should be known as truth, since it is not false. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is declared, Tayata Om Gate Gate Padagate Padasam Gate Bodhi Soha. Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound perfection of wisdom like that. Then the Bhagavan arose from that concentration and commended the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, saying, well said, son of the lineage, it is like that, it is like that. One should practice the profound perfection of wisdom just as you have indicated, even the Tathagatas rejoice. The Bhagavan, having thus spoken, the Venerable Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, those surrounding in their entirety, along with the world of gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, were overjoyed and highly praised as spoken by the Bhagavan. I prostrate to the gathering of the dakinis in the 3 chakras who abide in the holy yoga of using space. Powers of clairvoyance and magical emanations look after practitioners like a mother her child. Akasamara Shashida Samara Samashishda Samais. Akasamara Sashadara Samarayate. Tayata Gate Gate Padagate Padasam Gate Bodhi Soha. By the teachings of the three supreme jewels, possessing power of truth, may inner and outer hindrances be transformed, may they be dispelled, may they be pacified, may they be completely pacified. May all negative forces opposed to Dharma be completely pacified. May the host of 80,000 obstacles be pacified. May we be separated from problems and harmful conditions to Dharma. May all enjoyments be in accord with the Dharma. And may there be auspiciousness and perfect happiness here, right now. And then page 15, Mandala Offering. We'll just do the first 4 lines, and then Refuge and Bodhicitta. Sachi Pohi Shurshin Me Tu Rahamari Bling Shi Ni Tegen Padu Sangye Shinu Nikte Owaitro Kunamada Eshila Chupa Shogidam Guratna Mandala Kamniriyatayami Sangye Chudun Suki Chonam La Jangchu Badu Dabni Kyab Suchi Dagi Chunyen Gipe Sonam Ki Drola Panche Sangye Drupa Shu Sangye Chudun Suki Chonam La Jangchu Badu Dabni Kyab Suchi Dagi Chunyen Gipe Sonam Ki Drola Panche Sangye Drupa Su Sangye Churun Suhi Chonam La Jangchu Badu Dabni Kyab Suchi Dagi Chunyen Gipe Sonam Ki Drola Panche Sangye Drupa Su. We have a spot here on the floor if anybody wants to. Might be too shy to come forward, but if you wish. So here we have set a most profound Mahayana motivation, bodhicitta, for engaging in listening to the teachings, these profound teachings on the mind and its potential. So having set our motivation to do our best to listen, reflect, and use it as an opportunity to gain some tools to transform our own minds and be of maximum benefit to others. So then just settling body, speech, and mind into a natural state, just bringing your awareness into this space. Maybe some of you have had to sort of organize your mornings and this and that, and just allow your body to settle, your mind to settle into the space of your body, and simply be aware of the comings and goings of your breath, wherever you experience that in your body. Just that, just the breath. And with your mind settled into the space of your body and having some level of, being a little bit calmer in our mind, simply open yourself up to being aware. That's the job of the mind. Just spaciously in the space of the body, just notice any sensations that come, or any ideas, feelings, physical sensations, thoughts, whatever arises. Just simply be aware of all that, not to hold on to it or push it away, just being aware without getting caught up as much as you can. Just notice that. And if you do get caught up, just notice that too. It's all fine. So just taking a few minutes to shine the light of awareness into the lab of the mind. And just delight in whatever you do notice. And then just relax, open your eyes. So you can spend time at home. I think we said last time, a little bit of homework, reflecting like that on just whatever arises in the mind, familiarizing with the mind is what we're doing here. And then the whole, we've talked previously about how, our main consciousness, our main minds, whether it's mental consciousness or eye sense perception or ear sense perception, nose sense perception, our different sense consciousness are, sort of quite of themselves. They're neither virtuous or non-virtuous, we'd say. They're neither positive or negative. They just are in the nature of, clarity and luminosity. That's the natural aspect, right? Is what we have said previously. And like last week, we looked more in detail on each of the sense consciousnesses. So they're called, all of those that we've presented, like sometimes it's referred to as primary minds or main minds. So in other words, even there already, we've got 6 of those, not just one mind going on here already, But yeah, so what makes them either virtuous or non-virtuous or neither is all the other stuff that arises in the mind. So we were just looking into the lab of our mind, all the other things that arise, which we call mental factors. So that's what we're going to start looking at today, mental factors. So in the Buddhist presentation, there's generally 51 mental factors. Of course, there's many more than that, but they're sort of grouped in such a way to understand. And some of those are just about how the mind itself functions. So that's what we're starting with today. The one's about how the mind itself functions. And then you go on to look at, well, what are the virtuous ones? If having a virtuous state of mind, colors how I experience the world, and I want more of that because then I'll be happier and happier. I mean, even for myself, I want that, right? And I want to avoid all the stuff that keeps getting me into trouble. Then I have to be able to discern those. But we'll start with just how the mind itself, how these mental factors enable the main minds to function. And feel free to ask questions. And that'll include myself. I'll feel free to ask questions too. Then everybody takes a deep breath in and doesn't take one out, right? Relax. Okay. So maybe some of you have had presentation on this before, and I find it quite interesting that this is the very first module of Discovering Buddhism, because in some ways it's a really hard topic, right? But all of the Buddha's teachings is for the intention of understanding the mind and how it works and how we can gain control of it and set it in the direction we want to, and why on earth do we want to do that? It's based on some understanding of karma, of the law of cause and effect, you know, that having a positive state of mind will bring us a positive result, and having a negative state of mind is going to bring us a negative result, and we know which one we want. So having some, some understanding of that what results do I want? And so, yeah, all right, so that's the intro. So then to start with, in these 51 mental factors, there are 5 that are always there. Whenever awareness is there, consciousness is aware, they're there, they're functioning. And are we aware of that? No, I was thinking about my friend who came to meditation for the first time, and I said, I never knew I had so many thoughts. And she's like, but wait, there's more than thoughts going on there. There's a whole bunch of other stuff going on. So this is what we're looking at, these 5 ever-present or omnipresent. Omnipresent, I think I like ever-present rather. Omnipresent seems to mean everywhere, doesn't it? Whereas ever-present means that they're always there when awareness is there. And they're sort of presented in a little bit of an order, as if one and then the next one and the next one and the next one. But they actually said that they have to all function simultaneously for awareness to function. Now, what does it mean for awareness to function? For me to see something, hear something, and so forth. I mean, at that level, we need all of these 5 bits for that to occur, believe it or not. Okay. So these 5, so some of you have the notes, right? Some of you have been sent the notes. If other people want to be put on the list to receive the notes, then I don't know if people have copies with you or whatever, but anyway, I'll go through. Is there anyone who hasn't got the notes who wants the notes? Who do we see? Oh, we see Brian.
We just need to add your name and
on a list afterwards.
Yeah.
Afterwards, add your name and email address, and then you'll receive the notes for this. So this is there in summary form, right? In other words, you don't have to commit it to memory right now, but feel free to take your own notes if you wish. Okay, so we have intention, attention, contact, feeling or sensation, which is what we've already talked a bit about. We've already talked a bit about contact, and discrimination or perception. So these are these 5. Okay, these are these 5 ever present whenever we hear something, see something, taste something, smell something, have that sense of tactility, or have a sort of mental perception of something. Okay.
So can you say them again?
Yeah, I'll be saying them again and again and again.
Oh, okay. You said them so quickly.
I know, I said them really quickly, and now we're going to unpack them all. Okay. So intention, attention, contact, and they can be translated in different ways. Okay. Feeling or sensation, and discrimination or perception. Okay. So these 5. Always there. So sometimes intention is called like will, or an involuntary urge, or you know, something. It's wordless. It's before the words come in. We said our motivation here, and that word gets used as well, motivation, but it's like before words, before the concepts arise. So it's sort of like a mental impulse that moves our mind towards an object. And like, for example, if I want to walk out the door, I've got an intention there, but it's not like I sit here and going, I'm intending to walk out the door. It just sort of, the intention arises, right, to walk out the door. It just sort of it's like an automatic or an urge or something. It happens before you know it, like that. So it's interesting that the way, so it's a clear thought to do something, or clearly defined thought to do something, or an urge or something that moves us towards the object that, in that case, door. And it's also defined as karma. So those of you familiar with the 12 links of dependent origination, how we cycle from lifetime to lifetime. So this is the second link. It's the second link of karmic formation, or in the depiction, it's like you see this potter with all the making these clay pots, and they're all different shapes and sizes. So this is this factor here. So, and it precedes our physical action. So it's not the actual, even though it says karma means action, it's not the actual action. It's just a sort of like a volition. Sometimes it's in that link's called volition. Anyway, so when, of course, it's accompanied by a non-virtuous state of mind, which we haven't even gone into yet, non-virtuous state of mind, then your pot's going to look pretty ugly. And when it's accompanied by a virtuous state of mind, you make a beautiful pot. I mean, this is the potter analogy, right? So it has, so it establishes some sort of karmic potency on our mind, that is important, because we call these like karmic imprints, establish that on our mind, that ripens in some future lifetime, just like all the ones that are ripened in this as our experience, whether pleasant or unpleasant or so forth. So it's like, it's instrumental in bringing the karmic results. It's not the karmic result. So what happens in the, that cycle of the 12 links as we're approaching death, there's craving and grasping. I might be like freaking out at the time of death because I'm going to be separated from the body, and indeed very likely we could be, or we could be craving, grasping at our thoughts, my beautiful mind or my beautiful body, or just having a body. You mean I'm going out of existence? It's pretty scary stuff, right? So grasping at a life ripens as whatever karmic result. And so I think we grasped at a pretty good life, because here we are in our, perfect conditions as human beings, as good as it gets. Here we are in the Dharma Center and investigating all this stuff. So the conclusion would be, we've investigated this stuff before, and wouldn't it be great to have remembered that? I mean, having investigated before this lifetime, it would be great to remember that. Little in past lives. Anyway, here we are getting habituated to this right now. And so that then sort of propels, by our craving and grasping, existence, and that when that fully ripens, it's on the potency of this intention, this factor here, this intention, which propels us, then into, through the intermediate stage into our next life. Okay, and then that original karmic potency which propelled this life is still there in this life, and so it can bring further results. So, whatever environmental results or so forth. And this is, an example of that works for me is, when people get into trouble on social media, I always think when people get into trouble, I always think politicians, because they're political leaders, or they might be footballers. These, people are held to account, right? And they put things there that are very naughty, and they said, "Oh, I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I didn't think about it." They're probably correct about the not thinking. It was the intention ripening from an habituation from previously, right? And then you can continue to do that and make it worse and worse and worse for yourself, right? So we don't want that, do we? So that arising of the intention in this life, you know, sort of connects you with having a similar experience to that karmic potency from past life, right? I mean, working with people in prison, you know, sometimes when, particularly in I think, well, it's not necessarily just in America, but sometimes when people are getting released from prison, they say, can you find me a monastery to go to, because I don't dare let myself loose on society. It's tragic to have that thought, because the power of a negative intention in their mind, they're aware of that. They're aware of it. So when, you know, this is about when we shine our light on our intention, what is my intention pure, or is it mixed with this sort of, well, not quite so pure? And so, you know, here we are investigating to see how much light we can shine on that. Okay. So this creation of this karmic propensity or volition or so forth requires effortless intention. So it's not like, as I said, it's not like I'm putting effort into intending to walk out the door or anything like that. And that is said to be associated with the mind of ignorance or confusion, that grasping at a body or at a me or a being or existence, which propels us lifetime to lifetime, you know, propelled by karma. Doesn't mean that the events of this life are predetermined, and that's the good news. Because if the mind is by nature not physical, is clear and aware, by becoming more aware and more clear, we're more in sync with reality. As Lama Yeshe says, the more clear your mind is, the more calm your mind is, the more clear your mind, the more everything around you appears like luminous light. And so you have a lighter engagement grasp on everything. Okay. So, of course, our whole life is influenced by our past karma, or these habituations on our mind stream that we're not even aware have habituated us to X, Y, and Z. But by cultivating virtue, by cultivating our pure intention, our Dharma intention, our intention to virtue, attention to understand all of this to benefit myself, to benefit others, we can overcome that. So it's not like, well, you've just got to experience it in this life and that's it. So we do have, you know, endless capability of being able to transform our minds in that way. Okay, so there's hope for us yet, basically. That's why we're here, isn't it? Because we know that. Okay, so the intention is the mere, you know, moving the mind towards an object. It's not of itself, virtuous, non-virtuous. It's a function, we could say, of the mind. Yeah. And so the next one, attention. I don't know about anybody else, but I was told to sit up straight and pay attention many times in my childhood. We sort of came with a bit of a wrathful aspect. And it's what we use in cultivating meditation, isn't it? We talk about cultivating attention, you know. So I like the translation that says mental engagement, because it's attending to the object, my example of door. So when you first move towards the general object, you know, by the power of intention, and then we engage that object, I engage the door. It sounds weird, doesn't it? I engage the door. I pay attention to the door. If I don't, I might bang into it instead of going out it. It has happened in my life, not with doors, trees. I haven't with a tree and a truck. So we can have inattentive awareness too, without the, like the attention's there, but just not, haven't ascertained that you've got a truck in front of you because you're fantasizing. This was when I was in London many years ago, and I went kaboom. That was a wake-up call. You can see mindfulness was a long way off. So attention, you know, it may engage the object lightly or with powerful attention. We may pay powerful attention. I mean, another mental factor of concentration that comes later, but, you know, we might powerfully attend for it. And it's the foundation for cultivating what also comes later, the mental factor of mindfulness, which we also talk about a lot in meditation. So we'll come to that later on. We won't talk to that right now. So in the presentation of cultivating shamatha, calm abiding, like we just did a couple of minutes of get your mind calm. Yeah, right. It was only a couple of minutes, but maybe people came to the meditation session before and they were already in the zone, and I'm not sure. Or maybe you're just a great yogi and you're already in the zone. You know, when we look at like cultivating these, what is presented as 9 levels of attention, more and more refined attention, you know, at the beginning it says, mostly you're not attending to, even though I want to pay attention here, I'm distracted all the time, you know, the fans or, you know, the light or sounds, or, you know, my mind goes here, there, everywhere, which is why I was told to pay attention so much at school. We all know that one. And so you get more and more refined. So the first level is mostly you're not paying attention. Say you're intending to focus on your breath. You all know this through, you know, meditation, however much meditation you've done, whether it's a few minutes or hours and hours, days, years, whatever. And you're wanting to pay attention, but the mind is aware of the breath. Like even in that short time, nobody put up their hand and said, excuse me, what are you talking about? Pay attention to my breath. Nobody yet has said, what do you mean breath? You know, which is good because it means we're all alive. You know, breath's keeping going. So, but most of the time my mind's not on the breath, and then I have to remind myself, oh, that's right, I'm paying attention to my breath. I'm paying attention to my breath. Anyway, factor of mindfulness comes later. So it's a rather inattentive or weak attention. So we can cultivate that power of attention, and then it gets stronger. You know, you get better at it and you can spend up to a minute. Hey, this is progress. And then you get better at it and those minutes increase. In fact, they say as the minutes increase, just add on another minute or 2 or 3, and then we feel confident in our ability to develop that attention. So it focuses, the function of attention is to focus the mind on the object without wavering. And of course, if you cultivate that shamatha, those 9 levels, you know, you can then get to a point slowly, slowly, slowly. It takes a very long time, and it takes going into retreat, long retreat, to be able to pay attention without the mind wandering on whatever object you want, any object, without wavering, for hours, days. That would be, I mean, I think all school teachers and all employers would be rejoicing if their students paid attention for more than a nanosecond, right? Through this power of attention. So it holds on to it holds the object, it holds attention, or tends to, you know, pays care of the object, develops that strength of attention. So it's not an analytical mind. It's not trying to work out, is you know, the door permanent, impermanent, is anything. There's no blah, blah going on. It's just attending to the object. Okay, it's number 2. And the third one is the mental factor of contact. So we talked about this with the sense consciousness. My eye sense consciousness makes contact with a shape and color. Okay, brown dwarf makes contact with the object. So it's the initial experience of the object. That's how it's said. The object from its own side may be pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. Actually, that it is any of those is because of my past karmic propensities or what I bring along with it. And it said that this contact is the basis for us then generating a feeling of unpleasant, pleasant, or whatever. And so this in the 12 links is number 6, making contact with the object. And it connects the object, this is how it's said, connects the object with the primary mind. So the door and my eye consciousness contact is the function of the mind that enables that to happen. That's how it's said, right? Like that. And then the next one, on that basis, it then generates, well, it doesn't then, these things come along simultaneously, feeling or sensation, the experience of the object. So I might experience rough or smooth or something, you know, of an object by coming in contact with it. For some years when I was in Sydney, we'd have these outreach groups where we'd go and lead meditation. Everyone wanted not only meditation in their suburb, they wanted it in their street, I think. Oh yeah, but that's a couple of streets away, you know, can I have it in my street? Anyway, one of the places, very popular spot this was in Paddington, it was Tibet Gallery, probably still there. There's actually a shop by day, meditation by night, right? So you walk into the shop and on the walls were hanging silk scarves. And then the owners who offered us the space, they traded in Tibetan carpets. So those of you who know the sort of lush Tibetan carpets know that they're very comfortable, very nice. And they would be in rolls. And because we do lying down meditation in the space, there were no Buddha images. And then people would just, I think I'll lie down for this meditation. In fact, they'd walk in and they'd just be stroking the sky. They were allowed to, right? I don't know if it generated any sales, but that sort of sense of going to making contact and then pleasant, you know, pleasant contact. We want that. That's this factor of feeling that arises, that experiences the object as pleasant or unpleasant or neutral, you know. And then this drives our actions. Then we create more karma, which can be either virtuous or non-virtuous on the basis of our experience of that. So this one is in the 12 links, the 7th link. So it relates to, well, mentioning that, because it's sort of like connecting, why are we looking at this, not as a dry subject, but how does it relate to my experience and the experiences I want to create and the states of mind I want to create. So you just keep that in mind. The feeling is that mere experience of pleasure or pain or indifference. And it said that that level at which we experience and that is also a result of past karma. Of course, pain will happen, you know. Things happen. We have accidents or operations or something. But it said that nothing arises by chance. Nothing's just coincidence. It's all a karmic ripening. I think I might have mentioned previously, like when I go to the dentist, which I haven't done for some time, beautiful dentist in Sydney, who's Buddhist, he's a Buddhist teacher, for Rigpa, and his wife who's there too. She's a student of Lama Zopa Rinpoche, and he's the dentist. So you sort of go there and oh, what's Lama Zopa up to, and what are you up to, and what's His Holiness doing, and we're having Dharma talks, and then he gets out the drill. And I think, just look at those fish on the ceiling. You know, there's always sort of videos of things to try and calm your mind. And just breathe and meditate until the drill goes, "Nyeh." I mean, some people say they just meditate and they don't need an injection. So I'd say that is their karmic ripening from virtue, whereas mine is the other kind. Bring on the drugs. It's true, right? So it all comes from that. So those potentials, you know, those karmic potentials ripen in this way as intentions, connects it with a particular object, and then we react with that feeling of pleasure or pain or indifference based on, you know, attachment or desire, based on aversion, or based on our, you know, sort of totally confused state of mind or indifferent state of mind or so forth. And these ones come along when we're looking at the non-virtuous states of mind, which I think we'll get to those next year. In the new year. Let's just put them on. I thought, should I put them off to the new year or put them on now so we can purify them? Well, we can purify all the time, right? So in Geshe Tashi, who developed the program Foundation of Buddhist Thought, and he was at Jamyang Center in London. He's now not Geshe Tashi Tsering, who was the other Geshe Tashi Tsering, Geshe Tashi. So he's now at I think Abbot of Sarah May. Anyway, he sort of talked about there's 4 conditions associated with this sense of feeling. So one is just a natural attraction towards a pleasant object. We all have that all the time, just natural attraction. So of course, I think Buddha image. People don't have to be Buddhist to have a natural attraction. We talk about from the power of the object itself, because usually it's said it's all from outside, but there's something in that power of a pure, you know, figure of a Buddha that represents all our positive qualities, and we're attracted to that, which is a good, healthy thing to be attracted to. Or it might be unpleasant, you know, an association of feelings of unpleasant. And I think it's a fairly widely held view. For example, snakes. We sort of have a survival mechanism that kicks in Australia, because we've got a lot of poisonous ones, to have an aversion to things that might poison us, because this is our survival mechanism kicking in. So that's a sort of natural one. Or it might come through training or habituation, like in terms of environmental, cultural influences and so forth, that modifies our feelings. So for example, myself, I think, I was trying to think when this changed for me, but I think into my maybe early 20s, I did not like the taste of avocados. Now somehow Queensland changed that for me. You know, now I like the taste of avocados. So you could say the environmental conditions changed. I don't know that the avocados themselves changed. An avocado is an avocado, isn't it, right? But my experience of avocado certainly changed. Maybe I purified an aversion. I don't know. Anyway, that happened. Or I can say, you know, environmental condition of, I grew up in a musical family. So guess what? We're all musical, you know, because my parents met in J.C. Williamson's in Melbourne, and fell in love, rest is history. And so we all grew up all singing or dancing, right? So environmental conditions. So we can look at examples. We might have a certain disposition or karmic conditioning that is something that we brought from a past life. Like I mentioned, the guy in prison who said, you know, find me a monastery. I was just like, that's not quite how it works, mate. Doesn't quite work like that. You know, but for example, those of you who have dogs and take them for walks and they like to roll themselves in the duck stink, we would say, they love it, right? For them, it's perfume. For us, it's like, oh my God, I now got to go and wash the dog. I can't bear it. The very first time I ever was at Lama Zopa Rinpoche's house in Naptos, and it's the first time I ever experienced the smell of skunk. Anyone experience the smell of skunk? It's really as bad as I say. It's worse. It is. I think it was the dog who brought the skunk smell home on her. Yeah, it's really true. But for that dog, that was bliss, you know, so it's our karmic disposition, shall we say. And then whatever personality we have, you know, whether, you know, someone who's gentle and has, you know, a mindful person, gentle person, their feeling experiences are quite different from someone who's, you know, a bit gung-ho, rough, thoughtless, brute, we might say, insensitive or something like that. So all of this plays out in us just around this mere factor of feeling or sensation. So we can interrogate that for ourselves, right? Okay, so then the third one, discrimination or perception or recognition. This is how it says it apprehends the uncommon sign of an object. So I've already made contact with an object. I realize there's an object there, but I haven't yet ascertained door. But, you know, if I look at the uncommon aspects of door, it has a handle and it's got this shape and it opens and closes or something like that. So I'm able to perceive or engage with those uncommon aspect, or indeed the I consciousness, even though I get before ascertaining door, because that's a label of the mind. So a mental perception would do that, a mental consciousness would do that. But the I consciousness would just go, let's say, brown, in the shape of a door. So I recognize brown door. So this is this discriminating awareness or perception, which we've talked about a lot last time, because we talked all about the sense consciousnesses. So it you know, recognizes the specific particular aspects of any object. So cup, I might, you know, flat bottom object. Oh, well, I have to say mug. Flat bottom object with a handle suitable for holding drink. Cheers. So this is this discriminating awareness. Okay. So it doesn't ascribe anything negative, positive, or anything. It's good or bad, anything. And, you know, it doesn't also ascribe, as I said, a name or a label, door or anything like that, or mug. It doesn't ascribe that, but it knows that it functions. You know, if a child hasn't learnt language yet, they can still discriminate. I mean, they learn that, we all learn that very quickly for survival mechanism, isn't it? You know, so, you know, so kids point to objects or put them in their mouth or test them out and all of this, or they haven't got language yet to name it, but they have got the experience of it, recognize it as an object, identify its, you know, uniqueness. So this factor, mental factor of recognition or discrimination or perception is vital as a basis for memory. I mean, the very fact that I call it door later on is because I've got a memory of experiencing door before, or mug before, or water before, or something, well, pleasant or unpleasant, you know, all of these that come along. But also when we, you know, go on and look at other mental factors of analysis and investigation, to look at, to identify, we've got to recognize what is it that propels me lifetime to lifetime is this grasping at a self, a me. Okay, it might be the body, it might be the thought, but in the end, even beyond the body and the thought, there's a sense of me that I hold on to as an innate existence that propels lifetime to lifetime, you know, in this cycle of existence. And that is called, when we do that analysis later on, the object of negation. We're not doing that here. That's the thing I've got to realize doesn't exist because my mind's elaborated that. So we use this power of discrimination as a foundation later on for analysis. Okay. So these are 5: omnipresent, ever present, omnipresent, not omnipresent, omnipresent. Ever present's better, isn't it? I like ever present. I'm going to change that. Mental factors. So, yeah, we recognize all those different things. And so trying to put it together, even though it's not like a sequential thing, it sounds like a sequential thing. They all arise simultaneously. But illustration. So think of my eye, okay, apprehends yellow. The wall's yellow, apprehends yellow. So this is eye consciousness simply apprehending yellow, nothing else. And then intention moves the mind to engage in that yellow object.
Ask a question?
Yes.
So in that process that you're talking about that takes place almost simultaneously, when you talk about something or an action being virtuous and non-virtuous, what determines what's virtuous and what's...
Yeah, that's a good question. So what did, I mean, they're all good questions. So I was thinking good question, bad question. They're all good questions. So what determines it is not these mental factors. They're not these ones. They're merely how the mind functions. What determines it is being accompanied. They say, this is how it's said, whatever virtue or non-virtue, another mental factor that accompanies it, in the retinue, it says, of the main mind. It's like you've got this whole entourage with you of all these mental factors coming along with you. And that's what determines it. So it can be virtuous, non-virtuous, or neutral. You know, you might, just like yellow is yellow. I have neither an aversion or attraction to yellow. But there might be certain yellows, like of the robe, that I have an attraction to. And then that's an attraction to a virtue, because, you know, the Chokyi.
So is there a karmic component?
Yes, there's a karmic component in all of it. So just with that, just on the attraction to that example of the Chokyi. So Lama Zopa Rinpoche, you know, Venerable Roger would keep his blog, probably still keeps his blog. And it talked about one time when they were in a restaurant and the guy who was, you know, taking the order came up and was taking the order and then turned to Rinpoche and says, love your outfit. Right? Love your outfit. I've had that with flight attendants, not love your outfit, but, oh, look at you, you look so great. I really love, you know, what you're wearing. And so in this example, Rinpoche being Rinpoche and having a level of clairvoyance, when the, you know, the guy took the order and went away and Rinpoche turned to Venerable Roger and said, past monk, past life monk, right? So that past karma ripened as an attraction to the robes without having a clue. So yes, karma is there. Yeah, definitely. Yes.
Maybe you mentioned this later. The book came before about the heredity, when it's in all this,
Okay, in terms of hereditary factors, for example, give an example and we can respond to your example.
You said something about let's say a disease, okay, or an illness or.
Yes. Oh, okay. It's something genetic. Yes.
Say teeth some bodies, their teeth go out quicker than others, for example.
Yes.
And doctors these days
Yes.
say, like what I heard you say now is that the main thing is karma.
Yes, main thing's karma.
And that resonates well with me, but the medical profession for just about everything, like to say, like to add that element of, oh, it's hereditary. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, hereditary would mean it's in your genetic makeup, let's say. I presume. I'm not a medic. Anyone a medic who can shed a light on that, but that you have a genetic predisposition or something like that. And even with that, the Buddha would say that's still karma. It's environmental karma, or, you know, the culture, the family you were born into is all our environmental karma, right? So the Buddha would still say that. Of course, I'm not going to say that to a medical doctor. You know, when they, you know, do you have a history in your family of heart disease, right? For example.
Yes.
Yes. Both my parents, you know, my father died of a massive stroke. My mother had heart problems from, I think her 50s or something like that. But last year, the cardiologist said, I've got a beautiful set of arteries in there and I'm never going to get a heart attack. I said, thank you very much. Goodbye. So even though I might have, you know, genetic predisposition, it doesn't mean I will experience that. And that also is karma. It might also have to do with my diet as opposed to my parents' diet. And I didn't have 6 kids. I lived with the stress of raising them in a poor family.
Sometimes it doesn't present itself to the next generation.
Sometimes it doesn't present itself to the next generation. So the Buddha would say all of this is karma. And it's not to say that, oh, nothing you can do about it. Do, and like the fact that we have all the medical supports that we have, particularly in Australia, right, that in other parts of the world may not be available to folks, is also our karma, right, to have that available and so forth. So every single little bit of it's karma, right? And I would say, if we want to keep that virtuous karma going into future lives, keep creating the virtue to experience that, because it said, even if the body, the shape of the body you take, you know, the fact that you end up as a snake or a human or this or that, even everything, and even within human, as you say, you know, all the different permutations of being human that we experience, the Buddha would say is all karma. But I would never say that to a doctor, ever. Well, maybe my Buddhist doctor, our Buddhist doctor in Queensland. I can't know if I can say that because she's in Queensland. It's a long way to go to the doctor. But anyway, she come to the Dharma Centre, just like David coming here, cardiologist, very handy, right?
So you say you need to purify your karma because
Yes.
of your particular condition?
Well, our physical conditions, our illnesses, give us an opportunity to purify karma. They do, because as a human being, we can make sense of it. So like I mentioned before, when I came here for Chodron Rinpoche's visit, you know, but before that, I'd missed that teaching in Sydney because I was in hospital, and, you know, I got advice from Rinpoche. I just remembered this bit of the advice. I don't always say this bit, but so it took me a little while to actually pick up the phone, and, you know, there I was in the, you know, isolation unit, because I'd come back from India and Nepal. So I really liked it. They put me into isolation, but then they decided I didn't need to be there and I went into the ward. But then I got sick again and had to go into isolation. My friends who are nurses said, well, if you want to get into the, I said, you know, it doesn't matter if you've got private health or not. If you want to get into a single room, you have to be pretty crazy, or you have to be You know, I didn't fit any of the categories, apparently. Anyway, so what was I going to say? So the message, finally, I eventually rang Geshe Samten and he said, I was going to call you, or just going to check with Rinpoche. And the message came back. I mean, if it was Lama Zopa Rinpoche, it would be wow, 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 fantastic, you know. So it was, Chodron Rinpoche was of fewer words. And he said, better than eons of hot hells, right? To have that experience then, better than eons of hot hells. And just like, yeah, bring it on. Well, I said, bring it on. And then I said, oh, but not too much at once. Yes, so it is said in that way, you know, we can make sense of it in that way. We can make sense of it in a way and just say, okay, using it, because when we talk about the practice of the 6 perfections, getting a little bit away from mental practice, but it's all connected, you know, the practice of the 6 perfections, and we talk about patience, the perfection of patience. One of those is patience with illness. Learn to endure and put up with illness. We have to remind ourselves, those of us who are aging and, you know, experiencing the things that come along. May not be sickness, it just may be things have fallen apart. Which is also the karma of having a human body, you know. So, yeah. So, so we can put it all together. We make contact. Eye consciousness sees the object, makes contact, experience it as pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral, which is that feeling experience, displeasure, and so forth. And then the discriminating awareness that distinguishes, oh, where was I? Yellow. I was at the wall. Yellow. Distinguish yellow from any other colour. Or indeed, as we talked about previously, if you're the Kalahari, you would distinguish that subtle green from that the 17 subtle greens, if you're Kalahari. Yeah, and so forth. So they all, you know, come together simultaneously, okay? So far, so good? It's very complex, isn't it? And that's just what happens every moment of awareness, every moment of awareness. That's what happens. All these stuff come along with it. Okay. And then we have the 5. Now, the big long word is object ascertaining. Basically means how it focuses that our engagement with objects. So these 5 more factors. And generally, these are of themselves, they're neither virtuous or non-virtuous, but generally in the presentation, it's presented in a framework of virtue, because these are the ones we particularly focus on cultivating to overcome this whole cycle of existence, samsaric suffering and so forth, and, you know, progress on the spiritual path. So these 5 focusing or object ascertaining mental factors, see how far we get with these. We may not get all the way. All right. So these ones are aspiration, belief, mindfulness, concentration, and understanding or awareness or knowledge. So these ones. So the aspiration, sometimes in the Buddhist text it says prayers are aspiration. We have an aspiration. Those of us who are, you know, when you took refuge, say, and you might have been given a Tibetan name. I said to Geshe Samten one time, oh, somebody took refuge and they weren't given a refuge name. And they wanted one, right? And he goes, refuge name? And there's nothing wrong with his English. Tibetan name, Geshe. Oh, Tibetan name, okay. But we can say they're aspirational of what you want to, it reminds you of something of virtue. So when I was given the name by Lama Zopa Rinpoche, Thubten Chokyi, Chokyi being Ch, Dharma, and Ki being happy, or Ki can also mean possessor, so I like to think happy possessor of the Dharma, but the translator said happy Dharma. So happy Dharma it's an aspiration, happy Dharma. I quite like it. A lovely aspiration, isn't it? Happy Dharma. So, but the fact that I have joy for that is the Buddha, they say any moment of that virtuous mind arising is actually a blessing of the Buddhas, so it comes along like that. So these 5 focus in on a particular specific characteristics of the object, such as the desirability of the object. So you can say you generated an aspiration to come here today. That might have been manifest or not very manifest. It's just like, this is what I do on Sundays, come to the Dharma Center. Oh, I came because were you leading meditation this morning?
No.
Ant was leading meditation. So Ant had, I've got to go to the Dharma Center because everyone's relying on me going there, which is itself virtuous, because that's aspiration to do service for the Dharma, which is amazing, right? So it's desirability in terms of it being a means to enable us on the spiritual path, to develop our mind on the spiritual path. So this is the context in which these 5 are always presented. It doesn't mean that they're only ever virtuous. When we get to mindfulness, of course, as Lama Zopa Rinpoche says, even thieves need mindfulness. It will, So they're not of themselves, but these are the ones because we're here studying the Buddha's teachings and wanting to work on our minds, right? So these 5, the way they function is they hold the object with more and more power. So we use these for our Dharma studies, for our Dharma meditation, on any reflection and so forth, and any Dharma topic. So, so we're looking at it in that context to guide us to freedom. That's the whole point. So generally, it said we need for that to cultivate wisdom and compassion and unify the 2 in our minds. In other words, we need to become mentally mature. So this is a process of maturing our mind on the spiritual path that the Buddha taught, and these 5 mental factors are the way that we are able to do that. Okay, so aspiration is, in this context, seeking a virtuous object, seeking the Dharma, or learning to meditate, or learning particular, studying particular texts or so forth, that we want to engage with interest and faith. And we don't want to be separated from it. We miss it. Like last year at Chenrezig Institute, when, we were sent into lockdown. And it meant the students couldn't come to the center. And so all of a sudden, people were yearning to come to the center. This was before Zoom. I mean, it's not all of a sudden. They were yearning because it was like the lack of being able to come. And so this was before we got the Zoom thing happening, which fortunately didn't take too long. But in the meantime, it was just like, we had to get a sound system functioning. We had, basic stuff, even for the people who were there as residents, or 40 residents. So we were allowed to come to the Gompa. Sometimes some of us are allowed to come, and some then more, and whatever, all the restrictions we had. So, but the students would, they came and dropped off food and did all sorts of things to just be able to come that bit closer, that bit closer in, or to make contact with the Dharma. So that's this aspiration, to really, and so it's founded on faith and belief, conviction, we'd say, which is another one coming up, in the law of cause and effect. Indeed, we have a sort of whatever level of understanding of karma, and we want to create more virtuous states of minds because we know that we can, and we know that that's going to make us happier and happier, more peaceful, more calm, more loving, more compassionate, more kind, you know, all of that sort of thing. And when we talk about, so that's the first one, this one of aspiration, the wish, as Lama Zopa Rinpoche says, everything exists on the tip of the wish. Tip of the wish. I really love that, because it's just like, even just not a very strong aspiration, we develop deeper and deeper power of that. And then the next one, the belief or conviction, because it's based on this belief or conviction that really has a strong resolve. Okay, I really want to develop single-pointed concentration. We have a strong resolve to focus the mind, to stabilize the mind, and particularly on a wholesome object. So as Lama Tsongkhapa presents in the sort of third volume of the Great Treatise on Path to Enlightenment, focus on a wholesome object, develop simple pointed concentration on the Buddha image, which you've already got attraction to, here we are. And that not only you develop that single pointed concentration, but you do it on the basis of an object of virtue, accumulate vast amounts of merit. And, you know, we're purifying the mind, and we're creating more and more virtue as we go along. So this conviction and belief that we need, even those of us who have taken refuge as Buddhists, it's been on the basis of having checked out the Buddha's teachings, on having a conviction in what the Buddha, having faith in what the Buddha taught. That's one of the two main factors. Fear of more suffering, thank you very much, I don't want that. But also that mind of faith that has to be strong enough to have a conviction in the Buddha's teachings. And so we have these different levels of faith. First of all, is this first level of aspiring. We see a Buddha and go, oh, like that, you know. Oh no, admiring, sorry. Admiring, not even aspiring yet, just admiring. So many people in the world see a Buddha image and admire it and put it in their garden, on their wall, and all sorts of other places. But then aspiring is having checked out the Dharma, having checked out the teachings. Oh, the Buddha said I can become just like that. Okay, how do I do that? You know, and then we develop that, having checked it out, faith of conviction, where it is really strong. So this is this element of conviction, a strong resolve, you know, to stabilize the mind, to focus on objects of aspiration, whether that is be to study those Dharma texts, to learn, memorize that off by heart, or whatever, you know, we set our mind to, you know, to realize whatever goals we have set in our Dharma practice. So it's really essential for our Dharma practice, and as we go on more and more. So our appreciation for the qualities, you know, we recite the refuge and bodhicitta prayer, but how often do we reflect on, oh, what are the qualities of the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha? What are these qualities? Do I really have a familiarity with that, and how they can enable me to cultivate my mind on the spiritual path? So the stronger that we have that sort of conviction in their infallibility, that this is correct, then the more, the stronger our motivation is going to be, our intention is going to be to realize our spiritual goals. And this is really important as we go on. Those, I know a few of you have been, some of you have been around for many years, and we have to keep like re-energizing, if you like, this conviction and determination, because we can get, particularly when things are going well, you know, the mind can become, yeah, but I'm okay, you know, things are okay. And yeah, so for attaining that unification of wisdom and compassion, this is the strong resolve, the conviction that we need, you know, based on self-confidence. So this self-confidence, different levels of self-confidence, it's really cultivating a sense of steadfastness, you know, that no matter what anybody says, I'm not going to be whatever, turned away from the Dharma, you know, having engaged, I'm going to be turned away. If you're just here checking things out, that's fine too, you know, We check things out. And then, you know, I met a woman a few weeks ago who came to the Dharma Center in Bunbury and was just like, well, I'd like to go here and I'd like to go there and check things out. Good. She'll find her place, right? That's fine. So it's not saying, yeah, just saying that that's absolutely fine. So these different levels of self-confidence. So the self-confidence of, it said self-confidence of independent action, that regardless of anybody else, the thought, I want to cultivate virtuous states of minds, you know, without relying on someone else to do things for us. So I think, you know, for my mind, this is more like His Holiness Dalai Lama says, taking universal responsibility. You know, when it says, somebody should, and I've got to remind myself, oh, I'm that somebody, I should. I can. Well, if I can, I must, you know. So that's that sense of taking independent action, like to, you know, yeah. So not coming from someone else. A belief in your capability. I can accomplish that. I can become enlightened. I can become a Buddha. I can attain those realizations in my own mind stream. Of course, without that, we're not even going to give it a go. We won't give it a go. So we have to have that, you know. Enough said. And then self-confidence that I can purify my mind, get rid of all the toxic emotions or the negative states of mind or the destructive thoughts and so forth. And I can reach the point where they never are going to control me. But for that, it's going to take a lot. So the confidence to not allow those negative states of mind destroy whatever level of wisdom and compassion we have, because they're the minds I wish to cultivate. And it, you know, it's like shining that light of awareness on that as soon as possible, like it says in the 8 verses of thought transformation. Vigilant, a moment, a delusion appears in my mind. So having awareness of that. You know, nip it in the bud before it has fallout, before it turns into action. So we're talking here still at the level of thought, right? So this comes along with the mindfulness one, as I said. Lama Zopa Rinpoche says, even thieves need mindfulness, right? So checking up that our minds are in this virtuous state. So in the Buddhist context, mindfulness, because I think anybody who's out there in the mindfulness industry has their own definition of mindfulness. There's many definitions of mindfulness. And Geshe Dawa, who spoke at our very first Mind in Its Potential conference, says, if you want to become enlightened, practice mindfulness. Simple, right? Practice mindfulness. So this is the mindfulness that is focused on virtue. And we say it's continuously recollecting the object. You know, developing familiarity with the object. So say my object of my meditation, Shakyamuni Buddha. So I develop familiarity with that, which I can do even before I sit on the cushion. In fact, very good to do, you know, familiarize with it, study, learn about all those qualities, what every aspect of the Buddha image represents, study that over and over and over again. And then when I sit to meditate, you know, watching the mind, focusing on those those qualities, which are a reflection of my own Buddha nature, right? And developing more and more familiarity with that object. They say when you choose that object of meditation, however big it is, however you visualize it, stick with it, you know, Don't say, oh, I'm going to do it this big, now that. I mean, a lot of the texts say, you know, when they say, you know, visualize this big, you go, what? Can't I make it this big? So, but stick with it. Have your virtuous object and stick with it. It's like, you know, when you learn to swim and you can swim a little bit this and a little bit that and a little bit that, but then you decide, oh, this is I really like freestyle or backstroke or breaststroke or whatever stroke, and you get good at that, right? So same here, you get good at whichever one you choose. So stick with your object. So familiarity with the object and not forgetting the object. So if I'm sitting there in meditation on the Buddha image, and all of a sudden my mind goes elsewhere, I've forgotten the object of meditation. So of course, introspection comes along and brings it back again. So not forgetting the object again and again, remaining undistracted on the object. So then this factor of mindfulness becomes the basis for developing concentration. Single point concentration. Right? We all have mindfulness, every single being. So when it's associated with those mental factors of alertness and introspection, it becomes very powerful again for attaining wisdom, compassion. Because if I'm focusing on a Buddha image is the unification of wisdom and compassion. It might be, you know, the mindfulness of, okay, remember, okay, as a nun, my robes remind me to be mindful that people perceive me as something spiritual. They might not know I'm Buddhist or whatever, but she represents something spiritual. Or they might, like the guy who took Lama Zopa's order, just think it's a lovely costume, great outfit. But through this mindfulness focused on virtue, you know, remembering our vows, our commitments, we need to be mindful of that. You know, then by cultivating that, then those unwholesome states of mind, the ones that are going to lead us into trouble, there's no room for them to take root, to sway us, because they want to all the time. They do want to all the time, isn't it? Okay. I'm not sure, I might have to stop here. I've got a couple more to do. Yeah, I think I'll stop here because concentration could go on for some time. So any other questions, comments, observations? So you can see there's a lot going on in the mind, isn't there? You never knew so much going on. But by shining the light on it, it's just like we're unpacking it like a scientist, you know, unpacking and understanding more and more. I think about in like psychology, I'm not sure if they go into this amount of detail. Anyone studied psychology? They don't go into this amount of detail on how the mind functions. Of course it's the brain, because you can measure it, right? Yeah.
I'm reading the book on consciousness.
Yes.
It's just been released. That's much of what you said.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's addressed in a scientific way.
Okay, it's called Consciousness.
Consciousness.
That's by someone. Yeah, because I think, you know, this is what the Dalai Lama had said in those meetings as Mind and Life conferences, with the meeting together with the scientists. And when he was asked last year, you know, what have you learnt from these meetings? Said nothing, but the scientists have learnt a lot. So I think this has enabled that further investigation, because it's not to be critical, because mind science is very new as a science. You know, the science of the mind is very new. Even though you can say, well, psychology, really, it's been around for a century, but still the science of the mind is so new, understandings. So yeah, more and more to come. And it's good to hear. I was thinking in you study positive psychology in your psychology. Yeah. Comes up a little bit. Yeah, but more and more, I think in that space, there's a lot more of that understanding, let alone what's happening with the neuroscience and understanding of the brain and how the brain functions and quantum physics, you know, looking more at this. So there's a lot of stuff to be investigated on the mind. Whoever knew, so much going on. Okay, so we'll put pause button there. We'll get through it, the rest of these next week. And now we can dedicate, before we do, so I mentioned to Rob, our director, so I think it's okay to say, because he thought it was a good idea. We get Sangha, you know, IMI Sangha, we get a newsletter each week for the prayer-a-thon, the Healing the World prayer-a-thon for the prayers and so forth for the pandemic. And in this one, Venerable Thubten, who he's our fearless leader, and he's our mummy of the prayer-a-thon. In other words, the one who tries to get you to do more sessions. He's very successful at it, keeping everyone going around the world. He put a picture of a Christmas tree. And he said it was in their local church. He's in Nalanda Monastery. And he said, the churches have competition at Christmas time. Now, I'm not suggesting competition at all. Churches have competition for their Christmas tree displays, apparently. And so he said they had an exhibition of the Christmas trees. And he said, I like number 16. So number 16 Christmas tree had crutches and glasses and, you know, spectacles and all sorts of medical things that people might need, things people need. And then it had a little quote, which looked a bit like, you know, may all who are sick and ill be free of their illness, whatever diseases there are in the world, may they never occur again. In other words, it sounded a bit like Shantideva. And so he put that little quote there, messages on the tree. So I suggested, would we like to have a Christmas tree here with messages of kindness and hope, and maybe even some items? I think Rob mentioned previously there'd been some food drives or something at Christmas. Of course, it requires somebody to coordinate this. Anyway, over to you. I was inspired. Anyone else inspired? Don't ask me to do something. Okay, we'll see how we go with that. May not fly. But it was lovely. I found it inspiring. So think about it. And don't be shy to come forward and put up your hand. Or, you know, if a Christmas tree happens to manifest, we can get going putting beautiful messages. Because I thought about one time, His Holiness Dalai Lama visiting Sydney, and the Buddhist Council of New South Wales organised with their school kids. They had a tree of kindness. And so it's just a tree that they all put messages on, and it was presented to His Holiness. It's so sweet. So the messages, yes. But anyway, it's just a thought. Okay. If it feels too hard for right now, you know, we can plan ahead for next year.
I think we need to let it settle in our consciousness.
We need to let it settle in our consciousness, familiarize, habituate with it. Yes. Okay.
What's involved in doing
Yeah. What's involved in what it doesn't mean it doesn't work. Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, let's dedicate for today all our virtuous states of mind to continue to grow and grow. All these object ascertaining factors in our mind to continue to be virtuous. I think we'll do in English. Through the merits of this virtuous action, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the precious body mind not yet born arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. And then long life prayers for our precious teachers, His Holiness Dalai Lama and Kebje Lama Zopa Rinpoche, who turned 75 on Friday. Also, we saw in that newsletter, there was a big, maybe it was that big, cake. It was big, offered to Rinpoche, maybe it was that big. They had the thing in front of Rinpoche, big vase of flowers and big cake, right? And I just kept thinking, You don't see cake like that in Nepal. So it would have been a lot of effort putting that together. Not that Rinpoche would eat it because he's diabetic, but you know, it was the offering.
What page are we on?
We're on the page that's after page 18 and before page 20. Maybe 19. We can label it. Okay. So, long life of His Holiness Dalai Lama, the wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, to the incomparably kind Tenzin Gyatso, I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. And then for Lama Zopa Rinpoche on the next 22. You who uphold the subdurer's moral way, who serves as the bountiful bearer of all sustaining, preserving and spreading Manjana's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplishes magnificent prayers, honouring the three jewels, Saviour of myself and your others, your disciples, please, please live long. And for Tenzin also, Lord of Dharma, who in accordance with the various dispositions of those to be subdued, makes clear in the light of your well-spoken advice the sacred Ganden tradition, the essence of Buddha's teachings of foremost and holy Lama, to you who are supreme. O Lama, please, please live long. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we have one more week before the break time.